Technical difficulties. Hopefully I'll be able to get to my presentation. Oop, too far forward. Back up. Giving away all my information. There we go. Good, great to see you guys today. We having fun yet? Yeah, I know I am. Really excited about all this. Great to see so many familiar faces out here. As you guys know, I'm a storage person, right? I love storage. I do everything, right? But storage is my biggest passion. Data is the lifeblood of all of our organizations. And the biggest challenge that each one of us has is trying to decide, where do we put the data? Where am I going to get the best impact of my data on what media or type or platform? Because without our data, our businesses don't function. You guys may have noticed that on your registration that we had a question in there that was something I put on there to kind of get a feel for what you guys are looking for. So what is the most important things to you as customers when it comes to data or storage? So is it performance, reliability, et cetera? But based on your responses, we had close to 400 people respond on the registration. You guys ranked performance as the #1 criteria that meant the most to you in your data center. But interestingly enough, based on the percentages, only 50% of you thought that performance was important. But we have reliability, availability, disaster recovery, data replication, cloud, all of these things were important. They're up in the upper echelon of responses. But the thing is how do we deliver performance if we don't take a look at what our solution is running on? What about the transport? You can see that NAS and Fiber Channel and iSCSI were kind of way down the list on what you're trying to do. But you need to do something on that transport to be able to deliver the performance that you guys said you needed. So part of what we've done today is something that my colleagues and I have been talking about doing for 5 years now. And we finally got around to doing it. So we're going to do a little bit of a storage panel. And the intent is to try and address what you stated was most important to you. So please help me in welcoming my panel here. So our first panelist that will be joining me here on stage has been a former Fortune 500 IT manager with over 17 years of IT experience, managing data centers, systems, networks, and applications worldwide. He is a 16-year veteran with HP Enterprise and has been a master's technologist for both HP Storage and HP Software. In his current role as chief technologist for the Western United States, he provides our customers a CTO-level view of HPE's company, data center portfolio, and solution storage, as well as a product description or product directions and industry trends. So please welcome Mr. Gary Burgo to the stage with me. And don't break your neck.
Somebody left a cone up.
That wasn't me.
It was you. There was a cone.
So our next panelist, right here, boss.
They told me to go over there. You're not in charge anymore.
All right, fine. I know I'm never in charge. So our next panelist has been a veteran of the IT industry for over 37 years. He says he started at 5. He has worked in a wide variety of market segments, starting his career with Digital Equipment Corporation and working in various engineering and product development groups, as well as having worked for Hewlett-Packard, Sun Microsystems, IBM, and Avnet before joining Brocade. In more than 17 years as a solutioneer at Brocade, he has spent a great deal of time helping customers to understand various technologies and their implications. Spending most of the year on the road, he works with Brocade customers and partners on architectural decisions and implementations that affect their business. Please join me in welcoming Mr. AJ Casameno. He's a great guy, by the way. Thanks, AJ.
So they say for the mics, we need to move you down.
All righty, fine. I got overruled again.
Dude, I don't know.
I'm not surprised. I wonder if my wife's here. She's bossing me around again.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
All right, no problem. Our moderator for today's panel has worked at HP now for over 33 years, all of it around storage. And since 1990, he has been 100% focused on storage. He blogs, he creates videos and podcasts to help customers better understand the HPE storage portfolio. His blog can be found at the www.hpe.com/storage/blog. And you can find him on Twitter as @CalvinZito. Please welcome the HPE storage guy, Mr. Calvin Zito.
Actually, we'll put my name next to you and your name next to me. Flip the screen.
You can stand right here for a second if you want. And then our next panelist is a technical marketing manager on QLogic's OEM team. He is responsible for strategy and execution of marketing, training, and sales enablement activity relating to all the technology products and solutions provided by QLogic to HP. He has been with QLogic since 2009, and prior to that, he spent 20 years at Hewlett-Packard in a variety of technical and marketing roles in storage, and channel and global certification. Please welcome Mr. Todd Owens.
Jim?
Thanks, Blas. All right, so here's most of my panel. I get the dubious distinction of being able to join these really smart guys over here on this panel. I'm not sure necessarily that I fit, because I've been listening to them up here doing these presentations for years and years and years. And every time you guys come to me with a problem, they're the ones I go to find the answers. But they're allowing me to join the stadium or the stage with them, so I'm going to jump over there. Turn it over to Calvin.
Great. Thank you, everybody. You've heard about what the theme is, and what we're going to do is we're going to go through some questions that I think will be helpful for you. But as we get to the end, we're going to open it up for questions to you guys, because we definitely want to have you guys part of this and asking questions. So the theme, dude, where's my data?
Sorry, that was my fault.
You did that?
Well, I couldn't come up with a better topic, so I think, what the heck, that worked.
Okay, so then we're going to start first talking about media, because media is the thing that's changed a lot here in the last couple of years, right? I mean, I remember probably 10 years ago that one of our storage competitors was talking about SSD back then and saying that everything was going to be SSD within 2 years. They were a little off. The economics didn't exactly work out that way, but we want to start is talking about the media and what's going on with the media. So let's start with talking about the emergence of flash. And Gary, let me start with you. I mean, we're making a big deal about the all-flash data center. It's a big focus that we have. I know with 3PAR at least, I think a large percentage of the disks that go out in 3PAR are now SSD. What's going on? What's making it so that SSD is now more economical?
Well, I think the biggest thing is as we've transitioned to, you saw the guy from Intel earlier, and he was talking about the technologies that they're bringing out. As we've transitioned out to newer and newer technologies, the same things that we were going after in CPUs for years, we're now starting to deliver across the disk drive space. The thing to really start to look at after this is, what do we start to look at beyond this? Because all the people that have gone out and delivered arrays and systems based on what a disk drive looked like, that phenomenon is about to change. And so the media type across the environment is going to continue to evolve, and can everyone keep up with that? It's not just about being fast. Everybody could be fast, right? As long as you're putting SSD or NVMe in, you're fast. But then you need to start thinking about what services you're going to deliver on top of that. And more importantly, for all the vendors out there besides us, what do you do when the media changes and it doesn't look like a hard drive anymore?
AJ, what do you think from a benefit standpoint? I mean, obviously, we're trying to get the latencies down, and for some people think it's about IOPS. What really is the benefit of SSD? And before you answer it, I just want you to know that I'm going to put a timer on you, because I got to be careful with you.
Yeah, so I think thanks for the help, pal. I think one of the things you sort of have to keep in the back of your head is that applications are going to change. So I've been doing this now for 37 plus years, and at every step, I have never yet seen the instance where software asked for less. Software always asks for more CPU, it asks for more memory, it asks for more storage capacity, it asks for more network bandwidth. I doubt that anybody in the room can ever raise their hand and say, I can remember a time when software asked for less.
Thanks, software guys.
Right? And so, yeah, thanks, software guys, right? So 640K should be enough for any programmer, right? That was the line. So, but I think one of the things you got to sort of keep in the back of your head is you need an infrastructure that's going to be flexible, but you also need one that provides the solution sets that you're going to need for this too. Gary makes an excellent point. I don't care if you put petabytes of memory on something, right, and say I don't need external physical storage any longer. You will still need the services. Yeah? Database corruption happens for a lot of reasons. One of the most frequent is the human standing in front of the database, right? And if you go ask the DBA what image he wants to recover to, he's going to look you in the eye and cheerfully tell you he'd like the one that's 1 second in front of the database corruption. Unless you happen to have a copy that's a half a second in front of the database corruption, and then he'll take that one, right? So all of the things that my storage colleagues talk to you about in terms of the reliability, the recovery mechanisms that exist here, I don't care what format you put stuff in, you are still going to need those services, right? Because a single instance of anything is always a single point of failure. And the applications will change. And one of the things your infrastructure needs to be is ready for that, because you do not want to be the DVD rental store in a streaming video market.
So one of the things that...
5 seconds early, by the way.
Yeah, you gave me 5 seconds back, thank you. Of course, we just used it up. One of the things that we kind of sometimes hear from maybe the all-flash startups, I mean, it's all flash or nothing. So, I mean, this harkens me back to the days of, I don't want to mention any company names, but EMC back in the 90s when they said tape is dead. And you know, here we are 16 years later and tape is still going strong. It's not exactly being used the same way, but it's still going strong. So what about hard disks? And is it too early to decry the death of hard disks? Jim, why don't you take that one?
Sure. Are hard drives dead? How many of you guys are running hard drives? Most everybody, right? And part of the reason why everybody's still running hard drives is because the promise that SSDs are going to be, 50 cents a gig or 12 cents a gig haven't arrived yet, even with the deduplications and all that other stuff. But the other thing is how many of you guys have archival tape data? Or how many people are using backup to disk? Are you going to put those to SSD and pay the price of the SSD space? So the hard drives are going to be around for a period of time. We still need them. And in fact, there's a lot of things that help drive the cost down in an enterprise storage solution if I'm doing tiering. So being able to have my SSD tier up at the front to give me my high-end IOPS up front that I need, and have like a midline tier to be able to move some of that information off into there. And as data becomes older and stale and doesn't necessarily need to be accessed as often, move them down to the nearline class hard drives. That makes a ton of sense. And so as Calvin pointed out, tape's not dead. Hard drives aren't going to be dead for any time soon. We've had a lot of conversations with my friends over at Seagate, and they're still making tons and tons of disk drives. In fact, they're making more disk drives now. They're opening up more plants now to manufacture and continue to manufacture spinning disks. So that's not going anywhere soon.
Okay, good. Todd, you've been kind of quiet here, so let me get you in on this. What do you think about all this?
Yeah, that's a twist, isn't it? Yeah, as an old tape guy who's not dead yet, I would...
But getting close. He's getting close.
No, just checking.
I'm not? Okay. I would tend to agree with Jim that not anytime soon is the disk drive gonna be, purged from our environments. There's too many of them out there. But on the flip side, AJ and I had an interesting argument just last night about this very topic. And there are technology changes and things that are coming beyond where we are with SSDs today that may accelerate a little bit the demise of the disk drive. But it's not going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. But it may not last 20 years like tape has since it was declared dead. I think Gartner says it best. Gartner put out a statement, a Wikibon, were the guys, I think, in the analyst group who declared the disk drive dead first. And Gartner came out about 6 months later and said, they might be right, but then again, to be smart, the thing to do is to work with a vendor that can manage your data, which is your lifeblood of your business, across multiple tiers. And I think that's really what we all want to do, is to be able to have something that can manage across multiple tiers today and is also set to be able to manage about what's next. And there are all kinds of nuclear and all kinds of other good things that AJ is well aware of that are coming down the road.
Well, that covers the media. Let's talk to something that I think is going to be kind of near and dear to both of you guys, and that's the transport and the network. So Todd, since you're having such a hard time staying involved in the conversation, let me ask you this next one. The speed that we're getting out of SSDs, and I mean, it's all great, but why does the SAN matter? What is it about the SAN, and should we be paying attention to whether it's Fibre Channel or iSCSI?
What's a SAN? No, I'm just kidding. As a QLogic guy, I/O is what I live by, right? I try to make I/O matter for all of you every day. And the SAN matters because I/O is more important now than it's ever been before. Calvin mentioned earlier, a lot of people talk about IOPS, but it's a combination of things. You all answered some questions at the beginning of this event about what's important to you. Performance, reliability, I think were two things on the top of the list. And also data protection or business continuity, right? All of those things are seated in the network. So the SAN matters very, very much. If you want performance, you have to have a shared model where you're sharing servers across storage. You want to have a storage area network that's robust and has the ability to deliver low latency, deliver high performance, deliver diagnostics capability, simplified management, and all of those things help deliver the three top priorities that you all had coming into this session. What we were interested about is that there were questions about iSCSI and fiber channel and things, and they were way, way down on the list. Folks, those things matter if you want to deliver those top things that you had on the list, right? So don't forget the I/O, the network, the SAN, the ability to share storage across multiple servers is very, very important. It's not going to be all distributed. It doesn't say that you're not going to do distributed where you got multiple servers with storage and you're sharing the data across. That's okay, but there are issues with that. There's a reason we went to SANs how many years ago?
Yeah, well, so it depends on which technology we want to talk about.
Exactly.
But 20 plus,
right,
yeah.
Right.
So AJ, I guess I got to get you in on this. I was going to try and skip past you and move to the next topic, but I guess Brocade, and we want to talk about the SAN. I mean, one of the things I see with SSD is it helps customers to maybe not have to pay so much attention to the performance because performance becomes less of a problem, but the SAN's still important because if they don't have the right SAN for the kind of performance they're getting out of the array, that could be a problem. So what do you think about this whole thing?
So let me start that with maybe one quick show of hands in the audience. How many people in the audience think that they have an application owner anywhere in their environment that they could look square in the eye and ask the I/O profile of the application and get an answer they would trust? Yeah, see, why are you all laughing at me already? So if I figure there's maybe 150 or so people in this room, that makes now something on the order of about 840 customers I have asked that question of in the last 18 months. I have gotten precisely 0 positive answers, okay? Now put yourself in the place of the vCenter admin. You got new applications coming at you every day, right? And I'm guessing probably without any kind of a forecast, accurate or otherwise, right? So if you've got applications coming at you and nobody can tell you what the workload is, what the hell do you do, right? How do you cope with that? And one of the single big, spray and pray, right? Yeah. So one of the biggest single drives I see from the data center customers I talk to is from the vCenter admins. Because they're going to take these random workloads that they don't know what they are, and they're going to spread them across the hardware, right? And then whether it's ESX or Hyper-V or KVM or Zen or Citrix, doesn't matter, right? The hypervisor effectively acts like an I/O blender.
Smoothie,
right?
yeah.
It makes a smoothie out of the I/O, right? And so what comes out is random, and what the vCenter guys and all the other hypervisor guys have figured out is Flash doesn't pay the same penalty for random that spinning disk does, right? And so it lets them have to worry less about where they're actually having to place this stuff because nobody's giving them any kind of accurate forecast on what the workload's going to be coming in. So it does matter. Todd makes an excellent point, right? That people get locked up that, oh, I've got bandwidth. Bandwidth and IOPS are not the same thing, right? Latency matters. Deterministic delivery matters, right? Those are things that matter to a number of your applications. You just have to keep an eye on what's going on.
So to that end, Fiber Channel is not dead. Not by any stretch of the imagination. I got way too many people who come to me and say, Fiber Channel, oh, that's just old school. I don't want to go there. Yeah. We deployed a couple of POCs of all flash arrays. We put them out there and connected them up to their 4 gig Fiber Channel switches. And the customer was wondering, why am I not getting the performance that I expected? You showed me that I'd get 300,000 IOPS, and I'm getting 12,000 IOPS. What's up with that? And I go, well, I told you if we would have put a 16 gig fabric in there and some 16 gig HBAs, you'd be able to take advantage of that. And that one analogy that AJ uses all the time, it's like you don't go out and buy a brand new Ferrari and drive it on a dirt road full of potholes, because you're not going to be able to perform the way you want it.
You just said iSCSI, didn't you?
I would never do that.
Yeah. That's, I'm from Switzerland when it comes to I/O, okay? You want Ethernet, you want iSCSI, you want FCOE, you want Fiber Channel, I can sell you that. But if you want performance, if you want security, if you want reliability, and you want manageability, you're going to put it on Fiber Channel. And it's not as expensive as you think. Love to have a conversation with you about that whole iSCSI versus fiber channel. I've done some blogs on it and some other things. I'll be at the QOgic table the rest of this afternoon. We'll also have a little lunch thing across the hall. Would love to have that conversation if you're at all concerned about which way do I go, iSCSI or fiber channel. We definitely can have that conversation.
So we obviously, as panelists, we all love SANs. The thing that has certainly been happening, though, is over the last 5 years, I think the growth of data has been more on the file side. And so I don't want to don't want to ignore all the file stuff. So let's talk a little bit about the relevance of NAS and DAS. And Gary, let me maybe start with you. What's going on in the industry? What do you see in terms of DAS and NAS? And maybe just define them real quickly.
Sure. So when you think about DAS, right, we've been doing direct attached storage forever. Back in JBOD days, we started out HSZ 40s, stuff back in the dinosaur ages of DEC. We were doing direct attached storage forever, and then we figured out we needed some availability, so we started building RAID, then we started building arrays, and it's lasted a really, really long time. Then along comes a particular company that really loves NFS and goes out and creates a name for themselves and distributes a lot of applications into that space. But if you go off and ask people, 5 years ago, did you put it on NFS because you wanted to or because you had it? Most of the time it was because it was left over from whatever the NFS workload was. So now comes an interesting change of events. If you start to look at things like our composable fabric and the composable platform that we build called Synergy, DAS is a tremendous asset of that piece of environment because we take away some of the locality problems that DAS brought to the table and kind of distribute it across a wider plane. On the NAS side, I kind of go in a different direction. I'm looking at what Object is going to do to the market and what that really means. Because if you look at the workloads that are traditional NFS, people that are building chip design fabs and things like that, big distributed NFS, things like movie creation, big distributed NFS. But if you start looking at what cloud opportunities are out there, you start to see where that can provide a tremendous value to start looking at Object. So now, how do we start to leverage those pieces together? So you're starting to see direct attached storage embedded within server platforms, leveraging scale-out object capabilities, and then you're starting to see the transition of arrays that do everything again. So file, block, object, iSCSI, FCOE, combinations of all those things, depending on what those workloads are. So you have to start really. Just a hint. Did we miss one?
FCOE is dead.
Did FCOE die?
Yeah, it did.
It's pretty much.
Just so you know.
I'm sorry, Cisco.
Moment of silence for FCOE.
Did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. Wow.
Come on, Gary. For FCOE.
I'm known for not saying inappropriate things about other vendors. So the bottom line is, with the exception of Todd's stuff, no, I'm just kidding. When you start looking at where your workloads are going to move, you're going to hear some interesting conversations. I heard a CTO at VMware talk about DAS being the future platform of what VMware was going to start to deliver. And so you're starting to see workloads migrating to functionality you may never see or have never had to think of before. But what you really need to realize is all the years of engineering and things that we've done across all the platforms, right, are delivering. Why do we need fiber channel for certain aspects? They just told you. Do we see a long-term distributed need for NFS? That remains to be seen, but you see it kind of dying off over time. So you're going to start to see a combo of things like you did before. It's kind of back to the future.
Yep. Jim, what are you seeing? I mean, you talk to a lot of customers, probably a majority of Nth's storage customers. What are you seeing?
Pretty much, yeah. Well, Microsoft kind of sort of changed the playing field a little bit on this whole DAS approach here not long ago when they introduced DAGs, data availability groups. And so this worked out great for Exchange and now with SQL and things like that. So also, DAS is really kind of the footprint or the underlying foundation of any type of software-defined storage platform because you're allowing virtualization to take disk drives that belong to a physical host and then software distribute that into a high availability component. So DAS is not going away. That's still going to be a solution. But again, going back to what AJ, well, it's what all they said. If I/O matters, then you're going to want to go fiber channel. If you want to go fiber channel, you're going to go with an external array, and you're going to want SSD in that. But the relevance of NAS. NAS is another story. If you're looking at a lot of the backup vendors like to use network attached storage devices because if I've got multiple data movers or media agents that I want to push to my backup to disk target, it's easier for them to do that deployment to either an NFS or a sys mount. Because that way, if one media agent were to croak, then you have another one that can jump in there and grab access to that same data. So that is a good play for NAS. And the other thing is plain and simple, everybody has files. Everybody has all their back office files and documents and whatnot. So if I'm using SharePoint and all this other fun stuff, you want to put it out there on a network share that everyone can get access to. You all have your home directories at work and you get all the stuff. That's where you dump all your vacation pictures and whatever is going on out there, right? So the network attached storage is not going to go away anytime soon. But to what Gary was pointing out, you don't want to look at NAS as to be the end-all, be-all. If you want to have optimal performance in a virtualized environment, you're not going to run that off of an NFS mount because your limiting factor is going to be that network transport. And again, I/O matters, so we're going to need to make sure we beef up that infrastructure to be able to provide that throughput.
So how many of you guys would think that your organization would survive if you lost all access to your data for more than 2 weeks? Would anybody survive that, or would you be in trouble either finding a new job or your company go out of business? So obviously, one of the things we want to make sure that we did cover here is that aspect of data, because we got to be able to protect it. It's not just putting it on an array. It's not just talking about whether it's a SAN or a NAS or an iSCSI, but we also need to protect it. So we're going to do some rapid fire here. We're going to cover a number of topics here around data protection and this whole idea of protecting data. I'm going to throw them out. I'm going to give you guys each one topic. Actually, it's 2 topics each, but you still only get 2 minutes. And you need to impress us in the audience, okay? So I'm just going to throw them out, rapid fire, 2 minutes, and we're going to leave some time for questions here at the end. Okay, so first one, Todd, you get the first.
Oh, good.
Business continuance and high availability. I mean, talk a little bit about the importance of that and what it means to you.
You just said it. How many of us can live without our data?
Okay, well, you're done then. Let's go to the next one then.
No, it is absolutely paramount that you back up. You not only back up, but you restore, test it every now and again. I used to sell tape drives. I didn't sell backup. I sold restore, because that's what matters. You got to have a plan. You've got to be able to plan for that disaster, and you've got to have a system designed and architected. You know, dual paths in all of your storage connectivity, multiple processes to be able to check things. So it's absolutely, you know, it's a no-brainer. If you're in business and data is the lifeblood of your business, you gotta protect it.
So there's lots of ways to protect data, and that's kind of what we're doing rapid fire here, is hitting some of those. So the next one is about data replication and disaster recovery. Gary, why don't you take that one?
Only 2 minutes?
Only 2 minutes, yes,
Okay.
Because I forgot to start the clock last time, and I think you took 4.
Well,
4.5,
sorry.
but who's counting wrong?
Yeah, we work for the same company, right? So the first thing is, AJ said the SQL guy in front, or the database guy in front of the system. So the first thing to look at is policy, right? So when you start thinking about the Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital thing that just happened, where they encrypted the entire environment, whose fault was that? Was that the person who clicked on the email, or was that the person that gave them rights to every share in the company because it was easy, right? So you have to look at what your own policies are first, and then you have to start building the strategy. Do we do replication? If I have a problem, I replicate the problem. The solution to that is off-box recovery. So if I'm doing replication, I'm doing snapshots, I'm doing tape, I may want to do something to an appliance or some other form that is off-box. So when the forensic guys come in, Sony, excuse me. When the forensic guys come in, right, you can still operate on the off-box stuff. And that's really important to think about, because there's a lot of people out there, tape is dead, disk is dead, backup is dead, I'm only going to do snapshots. There are all these people that think they're going to move to this new nirvana of everything on one platform. What a total disaster that can be. So it starts with policies. You know, how many use a distributed administrative user account, right? And everybody uses the same one. I was in IT for 18 years before I worked here. I know a company that still uses one I created 22 years ago. So, you know what, it's very easy to get lost in that aspect of it. And then making sure that you're using the right tools. Sometimes it's ISV stuff, sometimes it's doing it yourself. But really, make sure you have a comprehensive plan. And as Calvin said, and Todd said too, it's like, do you ever test it? Do you ever go and recover? I know a company that keeps a guy that lives in Las Vegas near switch so they can do test and recovery once every 3 weeks. Does your company do that? Right? How important is your data?
Yeah, good. One topic that was always kind of a little bit of a blind spot for me, and I think everything I've learned about security I've learned from coming to Symposium over the years, because it's always been a big topic here. But, I mean, that's an important storage topic. Let's have you, AJ, talk a little bit about security and encryption. What's the story there?
Yeah, so for anybody in the room who still has vague feelings that perhaps privacy still exists, give it up. Not a chance. There is very little in your life that's not connected. There's very little in your life that doesn't give someone a clue to how to find you or how to get into your stuff. So you need to be thinking this through. In point of fact, several years ago, the banks came to us because one of the new technologies that had come into the market was a new kind of optical tap. And it was meant to be non-disruptive for analytics, right? And so basically, instead of having to actually cut the cable, you would shave the cladding on the side of the fiber, bend the fiber, and read the light through the sidewall, right? And so it's a non-disruptive method for adding an analytical tap to an optical line. And the banks looked at this because, if you're a bank, the highest threat assessment in your list is your own staff. How scary is that?
Just ask Wells Fargo.
Yeah, right. And so they said, look, this doesn't work for us. There's no event any longer that tells us someone is listening. Mm-hmm. And whether you're listening for reasons of diagnostics or listening for reasons of theft is intent, not technology. It has to be defended against. So we actually built, I don't know, sometimes we forget to let you know, but in the B-series platforms that you would get from our friends here at HP, there is actually a 256-bit AES in-flight encryption between the fiber channel switches for distance for dark fiber outside the building if you want it or need it, because we have some customers where a run of 80 meters or more of fiber unobserved by a human is considered non-secure. So you just have to think it through, right? However, when you're looking at this, right, you also have to be thinking about the external threats, right? And those are just, an incredible scale, right? Ransomware is just one example of that. But if you aren't thinking about it, think about it, because it will matter to you. And if you don't think about it for long enough, eventually they will catch you.
Jim, I was going to throw this to you kind of as a softball, because it seems like it's kind of obvious to talk about backup and recovery, but I'm going to put a twist on you. Sure. How's backup and recovery changing? I mean, and one of the things at least we see a lot of is it's that control of backup and recovery. The VM administrator wants control of that. The database administrator wants it. So how's backup and recovery changing from just throwing a tape on and backing up a system?
Okay, before you put the timer on me here, I want to make a couple of comments here. And then I'll jump into what you said. It's pretty impressive to me. Those of you who know the panelists up here on the stage, all it takes is a stopwatch, and you can limit what they say. Wow.
Okay, I'm turning it
I'm going to go buy one of those.
No. Oh, my gosh.
So, but anyway, what is backup changing? Now, if you look at these last 4 topics that we're bringing up, we're talking about data protection. And in fact, all of what we're talking about is data and what its importance is to you. If you go onto the showcase floor and talk to everybody in there, we have security, we have people that do disaster recovery data replication, we have people that do backup. How is backup changing? A lot of the things that backup is changing, we have integrated snapshots in hardware that allow to go directly to a deduplication appliance and then turn and replicate it to another location. We have software that allows you to back up the stuff locally, as a container, and then actually roll back to that backup target and bring the data right back online, and then do things like storage vMotion or live migration and put it back onto your existing storage. So those are some things that what we're seeing is a blurring of the lines. I know Todd was talking a little bit about some of the business continuance, and Gary was talking a little bit about disaster recovery and data replication. There's a blurring of the lines in that we have the ability now that we can replicate real-time, more of like a continuous data protection type model, or we can do point-in-time periodic snapshots. Granularity is like down to 5 minutes or less, and be able to provide local recovery points there, and then also take that snapshot and replicate it deduplicatably to, if that's a word, if not, I just made up a new word.
Just made up a word.
Over to another location. So the idea is that protecting your data is the first and foremost thought in all of your minds. You guys said performance, and you said reliability and availability, but that data has to be able to be there. Without that lifeblood, you can't run your business. And so that's what we have put this show together for, is to show you that IT matters, or the impact of IT matters. There's lots of things going on in this industry that help you go on. I know I'm off. Your turn. Go ahead.
No, it wasn't his turn. He's done.
It wasn't
He doesn't
my
get a
turn.
turn.
I'm just seeing if it works on you too.
No, it doesn't. I
So-
created the timer, so I'm exempt.
So I'm sitting here trying to do the math, and I'm thinking between everybody up here, there's about if you took everybody's experience in IT and in storage and backed it up, starting from now going back in history, we'd be about back to the Civil War. So there's a lot of experience up here. So now we want to turn it over to you.
The good news is we're with the Vin Scully of the storage industry.
That's right. And this is not your last time,
It's
right?
not his last. It's not
So we
his
got
last
some
year.
mics set up. Would prefer you come up to a mic so that we can hear your questions. But we'll go ahead and open it up to you guys for the last 5 minutes or so of questions.
We got a brave person.
Couple of them.
So I think Jim talked a little bit about, especially in the use of direct attached storage and some of the intelligence that are, moving into the application stack to better use direct attached storage in a smarter way. So, so there's that. There's some vendors doing some work on the NAS and obviously now on the object storage part in terms of having the storage do some of the smarts in terms of being more aware of what that data is and what needs to happen to it, whether it's for protection or performance characteristics or whatever it is. But at least in my mind, I still see kind of traditional block storage as something that's kind of a dumb box of that holds bits, kind of like what direct attached storage used to be thought of. But now with direct attached storage, software-defined storage, putting some smarts around that, what do you think is the future in terms of traditional block storage and the ability to put application level? So we've talked about protection and performance, things like that, but putting some of the intelligence, some software-defined type of stuff, to put it that way, on top of that traditional block we just ingest and spit out bits.
Sure. So that's why when you look at that example, right? One of the things that I think Gartner misses, Gartner goes out and talks about, we have traditional and we have DevOps type environments, right? And there's there's system defined and software defined areas of expertise. They're forgetting about the word legacy, like where True64, OpenVMS, Nonstop, right? HPUX, SUSE Linux, all those things still exist. All these people are still using it, right? So we have to cover that piece as well. But when you start looking at the transition to software defined, right? The intelligence has been around for 6 or 7 years. Now it's become intelligent to package it that way. And so as you're starting to package for what an application can do, I'll use VDI as an example. A hyperconverged platform is a great idea for VDI. It's an even better idea if I grab NVIDIA M60 cards and put them inside the hyperconverged appliance. That's something you couldn't do with the traditional storage array, right? You could maybe put some NV to make it faster, but now I can take a workload-specific environment that's built on America's favorite server, right? Hewlett-Packard Enterprise.
Number one.
Right, all right, there, I paid my salary for today, right? And now I can do specific use case enhancements. The Intel guy talked about FPGAs. We talk about adding NVIDIA. Now we can choose to deliver a service on each of those platforms. And the key is the software intelligence is what drives all that. So you're going to see more and more of that, but there's still going to be a balance. I talked to a customer one time that said, my whole data center is going to be hyper-converged. I said, you have 7 IBM servers. I was going to call them by name, but I decided against it. And they also had 2 XP arrays, and they were going to go to all hyper-converged. The workload doesn't calculate to what the guy's thinking was. So you're going to end up with both. How do you leverage both? And if you want to see how we can join both of them together, come to my NDA session later, and I'll show you.
Good answer.
Good plug for your NDA session,
Thank you.
too.
Thank you very much.
Just a side note on the tape is dead. At Gartner Catalyst, they mentioned that Sony announced they're stopping production of the Betamax tapes this year.
Well, it's darn.
Oh, man.
It's good to know. No more Betamax.
There goes your collection.
I'm going to have to buy a new machine.
Shoot.
On to my
time-
data question.
It's time for Laserdisc.
One of the arguments for hyperconverged is getting the data closer to the CPU. Intel talked about it earlier. We have workloads where fiber channel just isn't fast enough, by an order of magnitude. And so when you want that storage right by the CPU, and then you've got NVMe, and then you've got NVMe over Fabric, I'm curious about the roadmap for that. Part of it becomes, well, you could cache at the host layer. But as soon as you do that, now you run into consistency issues with snapshots, backups, and the like. And so I'm curious what that looks like, knowing we've been struggling with it for years. How soon before that gets solved?
Quick show of hands first before you answer. How many people know what NVMe is? You're going to probably define it before you answer.
So really quick, non-volatile memory express, think about it in terms of an extension of physical system memory onto a PCI card initially. That's where the E came from for the express piece. But it's a fair question.
It's effectively, they'll go just a half step deeper. It's a protocol, right? It's basically replacing the SCSI protocol.
So it's a protocol.
So it's not just on cards. It will eventually be in a fabric, too.
So that's one of the progressions that started about 4 years ago. When you talk about the latencies of the environment and the latencies of the network, if you look at, say, the B series 48-port switch from HP, the latency any inbound port to any outbound port is actually 0.75 microseconds. So the latency may or may not be where you think it is, because pretty frequently it's in the stack. And what my learned colleague to my left was about to say is, what we're doing is we're getting rid of that SCSI stack, and it's gonna NVMe drastically reduces that timing. They are having discussions right now for the next iteration of the silicon, where the total I/O across a fabric would be sub 20 microseconds. Which, if you stop and think about that, that's about 1/5 the access time of an array today, right? To answer your question, for us, it's a payload. So we've already demonstrated that we can carry NVMe over Fabric on the current Gen 5 platforms that HP ships today. I'm not sure how much Gary is going to go in his NDA, but there are things coming from HP that will
We paid a lot for that E. Put the E in there.
Sorry, from HPE. Towards the end of the year that will carry it over Gen 6 as well. And so from our standpoint, we're looking to stay within that sub 20 microsecond latency across the network, and it's same switch, same ISLs, and we've already proven that we can do it. So to get you that extension, because at some point stranded is not useful to you. That's one of the other reasons why storage area networks exist. Stranded resource is not useful. Right?
Okay. I would love to take more questions, but the clock's telling me we're out of time. So thank you very much, and hold on here before you go running off.